This conference will now be recorded.
Good day, this is Harold Watson, Chairman of the Planning Commission and the Houstonic Greenway Complete Streets Subcommittee. Due to the coronavirus 19 pandemic, we are conducting this special meeting on gotomeetings.com on Monday, October 6, 2021 at 12 noon. The quorum for this meeting is 6, and I will now call on the following elected members to speak up as present. Karen Burke, I know, is absent. Tom Dillon.
Present.
Ellen Fraint.
Jim Simon, if you're not talking, can you mute yourself, please?
Christopher Green.
Present.
Okay. Michael Masisco. Nels Pearson.
Present.
George Purim.
Present.
Jennifer Sheldon. She said
Present.
she was going to be here. Oh, there
I'm
she
here.
is. Okay. Yep. James Simon and Harold Watson. Present. And additionally, we have Karen Rodia. So we have more than enough people to meet our quorum today. We also welcome Susmitha Atada, Town Planner, and Aileen Marsh, our recording secretary. Susmitha, you said that possibly John Casey was going to come today?
Yes, he said he'll join.
Okay, so we're expecting him. We can continue, I think. Before I call the meeting to order, I'd like to remind everyone to raise their hand if they would like to be recognized by the chair, and wait to be recognized or called on each and every time throughout the meeting. Please identify yourself by name each time you would like to speak. This is per Governor Lamont's executive order, which allows us to conduct virtual meetings. The public is free to listen, but may only speak at the invitation of the chair. With that said, I call to order this special session of the Stratford, Houstonic Greenway and Complete Streets Subcommittee Planning. The first item on our agenda is approval, I believe, approval of the minutes. Do I hear somebody?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, second that.
I'll second. Jim Simon.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? No opposed, so it's 7-2. The next item on our agenda is, discussion of Complete Streets policy and Greenway plans. And then afterwards, we're going to follow up with the Smith giving us an update of where we stand on our current Complete Streets and our Greenway projects. So this really is just a chance for us to discuss. Given that it's 12:07, I would like to keep this to like 20 minutes maximum. So if everybody has one or two questions, without too much discussion, we should be able to get through this. I see that Joe Garrix is here also.
This is Aileen Marsh. I just want to remind you, if you're not speaking, please mute yourself. Thank you.
I guess what I will start this out with is that I know that we are coming close to being at 90% of our Greenway planning design, but before we go there, I would like to bring up an issue that is sensitive and involves one of our members. Chris Green and his wife were riding on Ferry Boulevard during the repaving time, and at the corner of Elm Street and Ferry Boulevard, there was a drop-off from the repaving where the contractor had not left the road in safe form for bicycles, particularly for cyclists, probably for walkers also, but particularly for cyclists. He ended up taking a spill where a 3-inch drop was, where the contractor had not done anything to put cones up on that intersection. So I just think that this is an indication where, as a Greenway Complete Streets Committee, we should start being mindful of that. Several months ago, someone was hit on a bicycle on Nichols Avenue. So these instances really, they will eventually go into a database, which we used in planning complete streets. But we need to be very active about this in terms of sending notice to our public works and our public safety departments so that they're aware of it and they can essentially hound the contractors to make sure that during all of this construction that they are mindful that bicycles also use these roads. Yes, Nels.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, and I'm really sorry to hear that. I've had a couple near misses myself, not with construction, but just, cycling on the local streets. I noticed when you get on exit 32 heading on, or on exit 33 to head to 95 South, there's a huge billboard that says bike accident. So there's a reason they probably chose to market that in Stratford, right? So it might be worth noting that that's probably, not coincidental.
Mr. Pearson? Do you have two devices on? Like your phone also, did you call in?
No, I did not call in. Is it getting you an echo?
Yes, yes.
Oh, I don't know why.
Okay, that's all right.
Yeah, I don't hear an echo.
I don't hear an echo either, Susmitha.
Oh, maybe my computer.
I'll double check everything to make sure. But I just wanted to raise that as something we might mention as, along with trying to find some hard data on the kind of, those sort of incidents.
The state does have a database, and Susmitha can give you the specific information of how to access it, but they do have an accident database, which includes autos, pedestrians, and bicyclists. So we could go in, when we were doing the first Complete Streets charrette, we actually had access to all of that. So we could tell you which intersection that there had been bicycle accidents. And I think if there's someone on the committee who would volunteer to become that person who can go through and start researching that, just to tag a list saying this intersection is bad, this is bad, this is bad, to put ourselves on notice, but also eventually that's public knowledge to begin with. So it's not going to change the status of the town's liability. It's in the database. So I'm looking for someone to say that they would be willing to do that. Someone who has a pretty good use of data who could actually start reporting. And if it sounds like I'm trying to give people jobs, I am. There was a time when I first came on to the Greenway Committee that everybody was very active with their own personal projects that they were working on, so that when we came together, we could share information, and the knowledge that we had was not lost. I'm looking to rebuild some of that knowledge amongst everybody, if that's at all possible. So, Nels, were you finished?
Yes, that's all. Just wanted to note that.
Okay, since I am talking about him, let me now ask Chris if he'd like to speak.
Christopher Green. Yeah, it definitely is something that I still have my jaw wired shut for another 2 weeks since I broke it in 2 places, and not a fun experience, but definitely eye-opening as a member of Greenway who really enjoys biking around town to see, I live near the construction zone. I'm aware there are construction zones, but to see the lack of forethought about warning people for things just because something's going to be paved over in a day, to leave it in the state it was in, a 3-inch stark lip, was pretty, for me, it was not fun. It's messed up the last month for me. So, yeah, hopefully when everything goes in, it's nice and safe. And I'd love to see, yeah, I'm excited. That's part of why I joined the Greenway Committee, to continue to make that whole area a lot safer for biking in all of Stratford. So.
And may I also just make a comment on this? That's part of what that's part of what we're supposed to be doing, is developing a dialogue with public works and public safety on issues in town that affect the Greenway. So we're not like overstepping what we're doing right now. We actually are being helpful. There's only a couple people in town like John Casey who can really make things happen, but he has a million things on his plate. So I'm not saying this in any way to be antagonistic. He does a fabulous job, but I'm saying, how can we help him do a better job? I don't think you'll find any conflict with his with us being willing to help him recognize this. Whenever he's found out anything, he acts on it when he's able to. I hope everybody has read through these documents. So Smith has sent them to you with the meeting notice, but you really should become very familiar with these. It was a lot of work putting them together. They were based on national standards that were adopted specifically to Stratford. So what we have here is what I would call a AAA complete streets policy. It was based on the policy that would get us the most leverage with the National Complete Streets program, so that when we go to apply for grants, we would have something, a really firm standing for them to look at. But we need to work at implementing some of these, because one of the things that this report says is that there shall be a yearly report. Now that means the Greenway Committee should be producing a report for planning that can then send it on before budget time to town council saying, we need these items funded, like signage or striping or any of those kinds of things. That's all going to be local if it's not a state road. So that's where we can actually come in and be helpful. I, in the darkness, wrote the Complete Streets policy, and I also wrote the ordinance, and it got accepted just because it was done and someone said, this sounds great. So I do believe we can have great influence in terms of moving this forward. Yes, Chris.
I do see the agenda attached to the emails, but I'm having trouble locating the link to what you're sharing with us in the emails. Could someone either put it in the chat or send it somewhere?
Chris, if I knew how to do it, I would, but.
Yeah, I can share it. All right.
Harold,
Yes, ma'am.
I need a copy of it as well because I didn't get it as either. So if it could be sent to me as well. Thank you.
What I will
It was
do.
just shared in the chat.
It's shared in the chat.
Oh, so you can download it from the chat right now.
So
These are both of these documents are available on our webpage, our town webpage, under Complete Streets, under Greenway Complete Streets. So you can actually find these documents. They're there along with a million other Greenway reports. These you should become very familiar with all of this information, because people are going to look at you and assume you know all of these, everything that's in here. But it also will change your attitude about what has been done and what needs to be done. Yes, Aileen.
This is Aileen Marsh speaking. I just emailed it to everybody, so you can print it out later.
Okay, I'm going to go back. What you were saying was that Susmitha was blowing up the Complete Streets policy, which specifically was speaking about our town engineer and his responsibility to implement as much as possible the Complete Streets tasks. The one thing that everybody should know is that when it comes to state roads, we have the right to request Complete Streets implementation, and they have the expectation that I think 1 or 5% of their budget, Susmitha, you probably know this better than I do, a percentage of any road redo from the state in our town must go to a Complete Streets segment in that project if it is not dangerously impossible. I guess that's the easiest way to say it. So, but we need to be there to speak about it. So as a whole, we need to have these an understanding. Yes, Tom.
So this is Tom Dillon. So just on that subject, with all the work on Ferry Boulevard, is that going to happen? Was that a different process? How can we make sure? There's been a lot of activity on state roads, and I'm not sure of the process to make sure that that budget allocation is made and work is put in. So
I started 4, maybe 5 years ago, writing letters to the state DOT, specifically on the new exits, stating that if you're redoing this, that you need to accommodate bicyclists. It's a dangerous area, and they initially did not want to, but I said it is our only way to get from Stratford to Milford on the East Coast Greenway. So what they determined was that they would not do an 8-foot Greenway, that they would do striping for a 5-foot, which is, I will take that over nothing. That will run down from, I want to say Veterans Boulevard in that area, under the bridge, and then around the loop on into the shopping center at Washington Bridge. So, but because of COVID and because of changes at the DOT, I do not know how that is, how much that has been implemented. And as a committee, we did not really follow up on this. So it is what it is right now. I don't know. They're far from restriping. They're probably going to be closer to it the next couple of months. So it might be a worthy thing for people individually, or maybe as a committee, for us to contact them and say, how are you implementing our complete streets policies on your projects? Because they're legally mandated to do it wherever they can. Does that answer your question, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, it gets to the point, but like, I just want to make sure, that because everything is such a long process, I'm afraid that if we're not way ahead of the game, and I don't know if it's a default process to make sure, that every time they touch a state road, that it's automatically triggered. So, is it up to us to make them aware of the complete streets policy?
Tom, that's part of what they have. They have leeway to say no. And what I've learned about the DOT working on complete streets with Smitha is, if we don't be aggressive with them, they're going to do what's easiest for them. So that's why I'm thinking what we need to do is create an inventory of the roads that are going to be worked on, that also are on our map of future complete streets projects. For instance, River Road, where they put in a new bridge, no one stopped to consider that there should be at least a 5-foot area on either side of that bridge for our future greenway that goes through there. They could have done that as part of the building and only increased about 7 feet the width of the area while the bridge was being built. Now the bridge is built, so it's always going to be a very tight pass. I don't think they would have cared had someone stood up and said, this is what we need to do. So what we need to do is make a master list similar to, I'm sure that Smitha would happily say, go at it on this, because we need to start knowing what projects are coming up and also what ones we need to send our wishes on. So that is part of, go ahead,
if I may interrupt, I think more than me, it's John Casey who would know, because these are all engineering projects and he gets a communication from DOT. And since we're now meeting every 3 months, I don't think things move as fast within those 3 months anyway. So when John Casey comes in, if he has any updates, he can share with the team.
And as we discovered on our Complete Streets project, the person that was in charge of it from DOT ended up leaving. And we had no one who had the knowledge of our Complete Streets project. So it really put us in a bind. Part of the delay is exactly that. We could not get approvals because there was no one there at DOT who knew everything, who knew all of the pertinent background. So we could make a request that when we can meet in person, I don't think we could do this virtually, but if we could have a roundtable discussion with John and have him bring to us the projects that he knows are being done, So we could actually have an open discussion, and where we can have him say, your thinking is that you want to have the Greenway going through here is totally crazy, it'll never happen, or things that he knows that he can support us on. I think that would help us get a clearer idea. Like on Stratford Avenue, there's a circle they're putting in with a half-mile Greenway, but it doesn't connect to anything or really go anywhere, and it just stops. So that will be good as long as we know that we've got to connect that to something.
Excuse me, this is John Casey. I am on the call.
John,
good afternoon.
Afternoon.
So, there's been a lot discussed, but if we just stick with DOT for a second, I'm not necessarily the prime contact for DOT projects. It's usually the mayor's office, and then it filters down. So, I may or may not know if DOT is planning a project or not. And if I am aware, I can bring it to your attention and Public Works Department attention. The DOT, as you said, is, they don't involve the town necessarily on their project. So sometimes they're doing a project, we get a notice, and that's about it. So if we happen to see the notice and take the time to look at the plan and scrutinize it for the Greenway purposes, then we can give our input, or you can give your input after we advise you. So we'll make that effort to do that, but we're not always in the loop, is what I'm getting at. Regarding the Stratford Avenue, the roundabout, that is a town project that the town's proposing on the state road, and if we are able to continue to move forward with it, there is a 10-foot wide sidewalk off-road path that's associated with that. But that is in the vicinity of the circle itself, and there are no provisions on either side of that circle at this time, but there is a long-term plan that there would be a 5-foot bikeway on road on Stratford Avenue to connect to other locations as they may become available.
Thank you, John. What I'm trying to put forward today is how can we help you? And I appreciate you saying that we really need to go to the mayor. But I will tell you that anything that I've gone to the mayor on about the Greenway, she has been very receptive to hearing what we have to say. I just think we need to find ways to make it easier for her to put this onto her agenda of what's important. I don't think we'd have any problem selling her on any of our ideas. I think she's been pretty good. Shall we continue? Joe? I know I haven't gotten through everybody. Anybody else? Joe, do you want to make any comments? Nels, you want to make another comment?
I just had a quick question about the map of the proposed Greenway, which, by the way, it's excellent work. It's wonderful work. That was what I was asking about last time, was a comprehensive map. When it says pathway extensions, I'm just not quite sure what that means.
That means that that's really a phase building. There is a master plan that's been done over the years, and honestly, Karen is very familiar with this. We started when I first came on to the Greenway. They had worked out a plan for safe school passage, where all of our elementary school, our middle school, and our high schools were connected with pathways through the neighborhoods onto the major intersections. so that they theoretically, we actually could develop kids riding their bike to school, kids riding their bikes home after sports, all those kinds of things. Well, we are far from being there, but that was our general plan. And that is exactly what Complete Streets asked us to do, is to develop a comprehensive plan so that every neighborhood has the ability to travel from their neighborhood into our centers of commerce and all of our other interests. If you go into some of the early reports, the 2008 report, and I believe there's a 2013 report, you'll see all of these phased projects. Some of them have changed because some of them assumed right-of-ways that we can't have. Some of them are efforts at trying to move as much of it off roads as possible. So some of it is still wish lists, but some of it is we're moving forward on, even on the most recent projects, the Complete Streets project that goes on Main Street and on Elm Street down to Bond's Dock, down to Birdsey Place, connecting up to our existing Greenway. So there are places that if we play our cards right in the next 2 years, we could end up with, I think, about a 10-mile ride one way, which would give a 20-mile ride in Stratford. That's what I look on should be our goal immediately, in addition to trying to get some of our schools connected, because we've got to do a better job of, if we want people to be riding bikes and walking in this town, we've got to start inoculating our kids into doing that. And right now, they are living the wildlife, going down the middle of every road and becoming a nuisance. But we need to start developing that culture of them being of them being part of our traveling citizenship.
Yeah.
I'm not here to talk. Go ahead, Tom.
So just kind of going back to getting ahead of the game, I think I heard, I'm not sure, that the bridge on Route 1 that is in between, let's say, Burlington Coat Factory and Home Depot. There's a bridge there. My understanding is that's on the docket for a full scale replacement. And that's that would be a critical piece for both pedestrian sidewalk and bike lanes. So are we sure?
And that's also that's actually a part of an extension of Complete Streets. So that's part of the whole development of the redevelopment of Barnum Avenue on the north side of Main Street, or whichever way on the east side of Main Street. That bridge is being replaced, and I followed up on that. I've actually had conversations with the DOT, but that's also part of Metro North is redoing that also. And when they planned it, they put in, I believe, I could be wrong, but when this is several years ago, they put in 5-foot paths on both sides. So they're planning on that so that eventually we can come down Barnum with a bike path, whether it cuts back behind the railroad station and all of that, the way we had planned it back in Karen Rodia's day, we don't know. But right now, our current Complete Street stops at Main Street and Barnum. So it would make perfect sense to just send them down that same way and go over that.
So if I may interrupt, I have on screen what Tom Dillon has been mentioning, and I just noticed it yesterday when I was looking for something else. So on September 23rd, 2021, there was this press release about rehabilitation of a bridge carrying Route 1 over Housatonic River in Milford and Stratford. So it is scheduled for completion on November 29, 2022. I think it is a perfect opportunity to reach out to somebody.
That's a different.
To see. It's a different one.
That's excuse me, I didn't want to interrupt, but that's a different one than what you were talking about on Barnum Avenue Cutoff.
This is Washington.
The Barnum Avenue Cutoff, they are going to replace the bridge deck, and they are going to be providing sidewalks on both sides.
Is that the bridge over the water?
All the way down to
John?
No, it's over the railroad tracks.
You don't really. you don't really recognize it as a bridge when you're traveling down Route 1, but it is.
You truly do.
Okay.
It's not the one over Housatonic River. You know, and so they're both important. I don't want to make one more important than the other, but what we're talking about is right on Route 1, basically right next to Longbrook Avenue when it meets back onto Route 1. And, you know, again, I'm still confused as to whether this is a policy. When I first gotten involved, my understanding was that there was a state law that required the DOT to put in the complete streets as part of their budget for any community that had a complete streets policy. So was I misunderstanding that all these years?
Not really, Tom, and that's why we now have a complete streets policy. So before we did not have one.
Ferry Boulevard's happening without complete streets. You know, that's
Right.
You know, that's what I'm confused about. So I want to make sure for Stratford Avenue and this other bridge, which is going to be, you know, a 50 or 100-year project. It's going to just sit there for ages afterwards. Are we sure that complete streets is going to be integrated into those projects, or is that incumbent upon us to get involved and do as much as we can to make sure they are? I thought it was
That's
a law.
incumbent on us. That is incumbent on us.
Right.
Because
So-
when I spoke originally with the people on the Ferry Boulevard, they were, okay, we can do this. They recognized that they needed to have 1% of their budget to go towards that. But it was only me standing in the wild saying we need to do this. We need to start speaking up. We need to say, this is our map of where we're projecting our Greenway is going to be, and you need to honor that. And then we need to have all of Stratford engineering and the mayor's office to essentially go along with that. But that's where we all fall apart, because that's where we have a purpose that we can educate everybody, both in the administration and in the mayor's office, of what we think should happen here, what our planning is saying we expect in order to create connected loops.
Yeah.
If I may ask, John Casey, are you referring to this bridge here?
Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
and I was thinking the other piece that they were looking at was more further down. Where did it go? I thought it was more near the water, near Milford Stratford line. Is that the one that they advertised for, John?
That's a different. Yes, that's a different project.
Okay.
The one that you had on the screen before is the Washington.
Okay, so they're doing two bridge works then.
Yes.
And
Now, the
based
thing is,
on
initially the DOT and whoever did not want to have any bicycle traffic across the Washington Bridge. They just wanted to outlaw it. But that is part of the East Coast Greenway. And anybody who travels from Stratford to Milford, which most bicyclists do, has to go over that bridge. I argued that we should simply ask them to extend it a foot, just 1 foot on the sidewalks. That would give us, instead of 3 feet, would give us 4 feet, and they could narrow the lane a little bit across the bridge. That never went anywhere, but I will say that Milford has been more active about asking for that same kind of connection. So we should maybe look at having a joint statement with folks on spokes or their Greenway committee and our Greenway committee. If someone wants to start pursuing that, I think that's something that would be better.
Can I just ask one question? John, where is the other bridge? I'm confused. Is it this one?
Yes, that's the other bridge.
Yeah, that's it.
So it's not, so Ferry Boulevard, right? This is the Route 1? Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to let you know that DOT is very resistant to having bike lanes and bike intersections at high-speed locations. Remember our Phase 1 design discussion near Barnum Ave intersection? They didn't even want us to have a bike lane closer to the intersection, leave alone having it on Barnum Avenue. And they didn't want us to cross the bike lane across on the other side. They wanted bicyclists to get off the bikes and walk the bikes across. So that is their policy, and they have certain rules and regulations on which ones they should follow about high-speed intersections. So if you would like, the starting conversation may be to know what is acceptable and what is not acceptable, and where does this policy stem from?
Yeah, and I would just tack on to that, Susmitha. You know, I commute Molly into New Haven, and there's a massive redo of the South Orange Street intersection. It's the biggest intersection. I mean, it's where I-91 and I-95 dump into New Haven. It's 4 lanes wide. And I posted an article in the chat, and it's fully set up for pedestrian and bike crossings at one of the biggest, highest speed intersections I know of in Connecticut. So I don't understand, you know, what is going on here that we can look at this. It's an 8-lane dump off from a major highway, and you can see it right in the picture. They've got pedestrian and bike lanes going right through it. So, you know, it says it's the first of its kind, but this does not look, this is an order of magnitude larger than the Route 1 Barnum Avenue and Main Street intersection, and it's being built right now. I drive through it a couple times a week. So
it's going to make a huge difference, and that connects
Yeah.
up to
I worked in New Haven for 10 years, Tom, and this is part of the vision for Route 34 for the city, which they're implementing piece by piece. All I can tell you is that they have envisioned this as an urban boulevard, and they have a lot of backing from the federal and state delegation for this project.
Well, I mean, we want the same thing. I mean, look at the right-hand side of the photo. Look at that enormous intersection going across something that's vastly larger than the Route 1. So how can we get our team organized to bring this to Stratford? It's being built right now. It's passed all the regulations. It's passed all the bureaucratic hurdles. It's right there, you know, right there. And I'm driving through it, and it's going to be an amazing thing. So I feel like it's incumbent upon us to bring this to Stratford. We deserve that.
We'll try. I'll have a conversation with our MetroCog staff and see how we can, you know, at least implement this on our phase 2 of Barnum Avenue. So coming to that, I think we're at 12:40. If you want me to give a status update, I can do that.
I was just going to say this. So Smith, I wanted to give an update on the Complete Streets projects, and that was the purpose of today, but I really wanted to hear from everybody. It's a beginning. Our next meeting is going to be in December. If you can come in with a defined project that you would like to begin working on, that we can as committee say, Tom is working on the masterful intersection, adopting something like that. That's what we're looking for the December meeting. So Smith, do you want to take over?
Yes. So I have some good news for you. We are going to start our phase 2 of Complete Streets study from Barnum Ave towards Paradise Green. We already have money appropriated in our CIP for the study, and currently we are in the amendment of contract with MetroCog. And MetroCog also sent an email saying that the board of MetroCog has voted to approve $2.5 million set aside for the implementation of phase 2 through LOTSIP funding. So we are in a very good shape there. Regarding phase 1, we finished our 90% designs, and DOT is reviewing them and offering feedback. Hopefully very soon, like in a month or so, we'll be submitting the 100% designs to DOT, and the grant will expire on December 10th. So hopefully we would meet the grant deadline of finishing the designs in time, and April 2022 is when it is scheduled for construction. Regarding Greenway, John Casey found out from the consultants who did the Greenway phase 2 preliminary alignment study as to how much it might cost. And I think a rough estimate to do a phase 3 study along Ferry Boulevard to connect to Dock Shopping Center would be around $50,000. So I talked to Chris Timniak, and he said if the planning department requests this as part of budget for the next year, then they would consider it and discuss it with the council. So that's the path forward for Greenway Phase 3.
Susmitha, does that mean planning should present something?
Well, we'll put it in as part of departmental request. And when the time comes for the discussion, you can come and testify. And you can also probably offer a letter of support, or if you can come in and testify or something. So they'll be part of budget hearings. So that's where we are.
Was there, the last time we met, I remember there was a discussion about the under train pass, going right under the train tracks in Main Street. Is there any update on that?
Yes, so we'll have lighting under the train tracks. We got approval for that. So which will make that a much better project, I think. Mm-hmm.
So there will be a green stripe squeezed in on the road under the train track. Okay,
yes.
Great. Terrific. Good news.
Yeah.
Susmitha, George Perham, you had mentioned about the design from Barnum Avenue, Paradise Green. There was already a schematic design, so is something being developed further than that? Is that what you're speaking about?
Well, we have to do preliminary design, which is more detailed than the schematic one, like we did for phase 1. So you look at every leg of the way and see the width that is needed, and if any, hurdles are there, like how we faced on phase 1, where we had on-street parking in front of Paradise Green. So we have to address those situations. And also, if you would want it to loop around Longbrook Park, or if you wanted to just go straight up to Paradise Green, I'm thinking this would be less intense than the phase 1 because of the lane widths and that are existing there.
Are we going back to the original concept though of having off-road and on-road? This is for Tom because he's asked me this question a million times. The original concept had both off-road, particularly for younger riders or senior riders, and also on-road, on the state 35-foot right-of-way. Essentially taking the sidewalks and expanding them to 8 to 10 feet.
Well, that's something that will be part of the study. So when we start the study, we'll have a public workshop and see what the public preferences are for that path.
So Tom, another project for you to consider.
Yeah, I mean that's the dream. That really is the original vision of what we were presented at Complete Street was two-way bike paths on and off road. And so I really hope that we can achieve that. I understand the section that's being done on Main Street by the fire department and town hall. We didn't get that there, but it really is a transformative vision of making Stratford a pedestrian-based community. So I hope we can fight for that.
Hear, hear. Susmitha?
I think I'm done. If you have to follow the next item on agenda, you could.
The next item on our agenda is our 2022 meeting schedule. I'm going to ask that, Susmitha, currently we're set to go every other month. That's going to change if we end up with a project that's in the works, because Susmitha is going to need our comments much more frequently than that. But I suggest that we just simply take what we're doing currently on the current calendar. I think Aileen is the one that wrote that up, and just simply flip it for 2022.
Well, I only have one request. Sometimes it may take more than a month and a half. So I will have to cancel the meetings when we have nothing to report. But other times we can keep it as alternate, once every 1.5 months. The only request is to hold this in the lunchtime, because the staff, like, we are work staffing so many boards and commissions. I have planning commission, I have architectural review board. I was also on housing partnership until recently, and there's a lot of commissions and boards we staff in the evening times. Because this is not a state statute mandated committee and it's a working committee of the planning commission, it would be helpful for me and Aileen if you can hold it sometime like this, like between 12 and 1.
Can I stop you and let me just see a show of hands? Who would be amenable to doing this at a lunchtime meeting? 1, 2, 3. Anybody else? 4. George? I guess, have we lost George?
No, my hand's up. My hand is up.
Okay, so everybody essentially, and Karen, would you? I think we could go with that. I don't think that should be a problem. Do we need to vote on that?
This is Aileen Marsh. The meeting schedule that I had sent out that was based on what you guys did in whatever 21. It's the first Wednesday of every 4th month. So you'd have meetings in January, April, July, and October.
And honestly, I think we should double those meetings. That's my recommendation. If we don't need them, it's easy to cancel them. But if we can make them be once a month, then Susmitha, with the projects coming up, because we're talking about $5.5 million worth of work that's going to be going on. And we do have a part to play in that when she needs input from us. If we're going to talk about reimagining the Greenway so we're more active, then I suggest that we just do this. We're going to do it at lunchtime, that we say we do this every Wednesday, once a month every Wednesday.
Well, we have to check our holiday schedule and other.
I understand, and that could be put into the mix.
So for now, Aileen, we probably have to wait until December again.
Okay.
Unless you have dates with you already and they can vote on it.
I do. From the Arts
All right.
Commission. Do you want me to read them to you?
Yes, please.
All right, guys, here we come. Okay, so the first Wednesday of every month in 2022 is January 5th, February 2nd, March 2nd, April 6th, May 4th, June 1st, July 6th, April 3rd,
August 3rd.
I'm sorry, August 3rd, September 7th, October 5th, November 2nd, and December 7th.
I think that should be good.
There are no conflicts at this time with any town holidays.
Can we just simply do a quick vote and then we'll get out of here on this? Can we vote, even if we have to change it, amend it, can we just simply vote on this as the schedule for 22? Can someone make a?
I'll make a motion to accept those dates.
I'll second it. Second.
Who?
Jim Simon.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? So the ayes have it. Aileen, is that enough for you?
Absolutely. I'll make it
Everybody-
happen.
So we did accomplish one good hard thing. With that, we're at 12:53. Anybody else want to make a final comment before we close the meeting? No? Thank you guys for being so generous today. I appreciate it. Will someone make a motion to close the meeting? Nels,
Make a motion to close.
seconded by George. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? The yeses have it. Thank you guys very much. I appreciate it. I'll see you on December 2nd, December 6th, I think it is.